Champlain College Wave Riders. My name is Dr. Kimberly Quinn, and I have the pleasure once again of being here with Dr. Tom Myers. And today we're going to talk about, we're going to sort of jump back into spirituality as it relates to belonging in community. And this important conversation is once again in partnership with Columbia Teachers College and the Templeton Foundation, which is a collaborative with the Spirituality and Education Project. So welcome back, Tom.
Thank you, Kim. Great to be here again.
Good. Well, so, you and I were talking last week about just this incredible, well, really what it is Tom and I were saying it's like kind of like a spirituality crisis among, young adults. And so we're kind of honing in on the higher education piece with this, because I know as professors and researchers, we're both seeing it. And last week we kind of defined it and talked about, spirituality and depression as being two sides of the same coin. And now this week we wanted to kind of pick up where we left off as far as a little bit of synchronicity talk, and I think also the importance of belonging, especially at this age. Oh my gosh. And also we all need it, but this is the age for that, right? And also communities. Maybe can you start us off, Tom, on talking about young adults and the need for belonging, especially post-pandemic?
Yeah, especially. Right, Kim. Thank you. It's nice to be here again. The pandemic just sent everyone in a tailspin. Yours truly. But it created this forced isolation that heretofore that we had been in communication with one another in part of a community. And I think the beauty that it maybe this really kind of put a magnifying glass on the fact that no matter who you are, you belong to a community. Mm-hmm. And you can think of so many different cultures, subcultures, connections that people have that were lost. And to feel that you are being seen and that you are valued and you belong, and you have that sense of a feedback loop when talking and being with other people, that you are human and that you are okay. And I think too much isolation, as we talked last time, it creates this delusion, and this delusion about who you are, your self-worth, your self-esteem, do you matter in the world when you're so much by yourself. That it can create devastating consequences. So when we are able to be with others, even if it's passively, right? It doesn't have to be in an active conversation, but just sitting together, mm-hmm. enjoying an event, or being together, going for a walk, or however that might be with family and friends, you're still, you have this connectivity from an emotional, physical, spiritual, and mental connection with one another, no matter how you show up. So I think the pandemic certainly exacerbated the fact that we were alone maybe too much.
Maybe too much. I'm thinking, Tom, listening to you, I'm thinking it's kind of like other people mirror for us, mm-hmm, and it's a fact mm-hmm. check and it's a reality check, because I've heard students so much talking about anxiety and depression, and they're obviously that's kind of there, you can't have one without the other, right? But they talk about how being mental prison, sometimes they'll say, or mental jail, or they have different ways of saying that. So when you're isolating and you're hearing all these thoughts that are not based in fact whatsoever, right? Because anxieties for the most part are irrational, right? And so we're all these thought bubbles. I'm thinking of Jon Kabat-Zinn saying, they're like just thought bubbles, but when we don't fact check all these ways that they say, I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough, I'm not this enough, and focused on being stuck and angered in the past or the future that's coming up, and if you don't have any mirroring or fact checking with that reality you're creating in your mind, that then becomes your daily reality. So what do you have to say about that and sort of where to go with that?
Yeah, and you do start to take that on as your new persona.
Right.
It's like, I'm by myself again. The other thing I was thinking about that adds to it is within the pandemic, while we were isolated, you would ruminate about the past. Like, oh, remember those good old days when we would have meetings together? We could go out for dinner. We can go to the movies. We, didn't have to worry about, staying at home. Additionally, it was exacerbated by the fact we didn't know when this was ever going to end.
Yes.
It wasn't going to be, okay, everybody, by December, all
Right,
done. We're going to be moving into the new, no more pandemic. No, it just lingered.
Right.
And I think it even was that point of opening up a little bit and gave us a taste of things opening. And then Omicron came, the second round, and we were yanked back into isolation. So it was that feeling of there is no distinct ending, and we never knew when that was going to happen. So I think that kind of added to the whole piece of futility.
Right.
Oh, am I going to be by myself forever, or living in this world for this, as I said, I don't always like the term, but the new normal. We can live in this for the rest of our lives. So again, think about the supercharging of anxiety at that point.
Yeah, the supercharging of anxiety, right? And coupled with if somebody's already wrestling with feelings of hopelessness and helplessness even on a better day, and enter in the pandemic and this forced isolation. I remember it here, and Champlain did a really great job with managing it, actually, but I remember the plexiglass in the cafeterias. Like, it was like you would talk in jail through a phone. I mean, I can't even imagine what that was like. And I would see so many students, because we had to, but so many students did to go. Just did to go. We have you've seen the view. We have a gorgeous view out the window of the cafeteria, nicer than most restaurants, and nobody was using it because because we had to. But that's so much a part of college, and not just college, but life, is sitting and breaking bread, so to speak, with people, not in your dorm room alone out of a styrofoam box.
There's so many levels, so many sensory, the beauty of so many, sensory feelings of eating together and being together, and the other thing that you have to understand is that we're all energy beings.
Oh, totally.
with mass and energy, and so you have vibrational waves that are you are emitting and then you're
100%.
receiving. You can't do that on Zoom. You can't do that in any kind of phone conversation. So you have to have all of the physical proximity, along with the nonverbal communication, those other areas that just are not fulfilling and physiologically not sensing. So you become distorted in a way without, as you mentioned, that feedback loop of being with other people.
In person. There's that, Tom, and I'm glad that you tapped into that with the face-to-face thing, because as Wayne Dyer, I love him, he talks about it a lot and says we're not human beings having a spiritual experience, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And even neurologically, we are walking balls of energy, we're electrons bumping into other, we're energy. And if we can't, and you're right about the screen thing, and then that actually brought me to another place, because I could talk about neurons all day long and not have one bored second, is the mirror neurons, which Dr. Ramahandran, he's done great work with this. He actually refers to mirror neurons as the Gandhi neurons, because these are how we learn empathy, by watching other faces and watching it's all the face-to-face interaction, which they do not work almost at all through a screen. They do, but not much, like little itty bitty bit. So it's how we learn. It's just like with when babies see another another little toddler upset, all of a sudden everybody's upset. Like a nursery, empathy. One cries and everybody's crying. And it's how we're not getting that on a Zoom call, which on a different, I guess it's probably a conversation for another time. But 20 years from now, I'd love to see the studies on empathy, because the young kids who had to learn and socialize through a screen, the developing kids, that the empathy stuff, that is not happening. That is frightening to me. But back to the idea of our young adults, not good.
Yeah, and I think it created this, and we mentioned earlier, this concept of transactional relationships.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to come to a meeting. Give me what I need, and I got to move on. So my son is a high school teacher, and he said, "Boy, it's sometimes difficult with our seniors in high school, just getting them to commit to a meeting." Getting that, because they won't just
mean in
just
person?
in person. Come to a meeting in person to talk about college, whatever it might be for next year. They say, well, I'll just text you or I'll just email you. And my son had to think about, well, you know what? These were the kids these students came in as first-year students during the pandemic. They didn't have a normal high school socially
Right.
interactive, physically interactive.
So they've been conditioned.
So they've been
now.
conditioned.
Wow.
And so come talk to the teacher face to face. Well, why do I need to do that? I'll just email you, or we'll do a Zoom call. So there is maybe a reversal that it's going to be needed, and we see this in the college students as well, as like a deconditioning, if you will, from that transactional give-take relationship, me what I need and got to move on, to back to that relational and heart-centered
I love it.
heart-centered relationships
Authentic.
and interactions. Yeah.
Authentic people having a conversation that's more than about what they just need in this minute.
And I'll say, I'm maybe a little bit an outlier here, but I enjoy meetings. Certainly if it's not, there can be a waste of time, obviously, in certain cases, but I just like to be with people.
I do too.
And I tell you, I'm on a Zoom call, I'm watching my watch. I'm
Draining.
like, how long does this, I can't wait to get off. I'll say what I need to do, and part of my job, communicate, but boy, it is, again,
It's painful.
It's painful.
I agree with you.
Painful. And you think about how much work gets done when we are face to face, and even the hallway meetings that we can have, but just that human interaction.
Or even
of
over
being
lunch.
Yes, physically.
Stuff that happens informally, and like, oh wow, that's a great idea. Run with it, right?
So there's back to the work of decision making being a top down or a bottom up approach of from the head focus top down versus the intuitive focus bottom up approach of allowing things to happen. So Dr. Berman from University of Chicago and his colleagues did extensive research on the process of decision making.
Wow. So that probably went right down the drain during the pandemic, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And especially if we brought in, we were talking about anxiety and depression earlier too. That if we're locked into survival brain versus learning brain anyway, all the like the needs you're talking about, the survival needs, social, emotional, physical, all of it, we're not in a place to make great decisions. Because it's all about threats and danger and loneliness, and we're not clear-minded. The working memory is clogged up, so we are not in a place to make good, healthy decisions that are in our best interest.
Yeah, and I think myself, I have to make a decision in isolation. I will second guess myself, right?
Yeah. The self-doubt creeps in, right?
But being with others and in community,
right,
you're getting some feedback. But you're also getting, an assurance that, okay, your decision you're making, I'm getting some nods around the room. Okay, this is going to be okay. Other people may have my back in this. So again, there's a essence of, sure, I'll take a little more of a risk.
Camaraderie and maybe security.
Yeah.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Sort of, it's the mirroring again.
The mirroring, the
fact checking.
Empathetic mirroring and the emotional support of like we have your back.
Right.
Go for it.
And that human need. I know we're very similar, because when I have my cabinet, as I like to call them, I think we all have our cabinet, right? And when you bounce off and people you can trust implicitly, and they'll tell you if it's not a good idea. When you get the green lights from them, I just feel so solid. I feel like I have the world by the tail. Like I go full throttle forward because I just got the approval of my cabinet, my own personal cabinet, and without that is hard.
Yeah. So again, your personal cabinet might include, from a spiritual standpoint.
Oh, definitely.
You have a higher being, a higher power, a higher self, a universe, a God. That's kind of part of your cabinet.
Absolutely.
To have that being that part of a God, and that's the think the power of having a spiritual sense and a spiritual practice. However,
100%. I know you and I both live this way. I gratitude journal every day of my life. And then bringing it into our sense of belonging and community, that realization of that spirituality, higher power, God, universe, however you want to say, that in you, that in me, with the cabinet, we're all connected. And that the strength of that, for me, is amazing. The authentic confidence that comes out of that, especially with major life decisions. If you're having a switch with something, a job or relation, whatever it is, buying a house, moving, whatever. When you have that spiritual connection, the higher power within other people. I almost said higher power.
Yeah.
You have to edit that because I've made myself laugh. But when we have that that spiritual connection, I can't do it anymore. Looking at Tom laughing. When you have that spiritual connection of a higher power with other people, which I'm sure is also how I can't help it. Oh my God. Okay, let's look over here. Which is, I'm sure, also, how a lot of the recovery programs work, right? Because we're working as individuals together.
Yeah.
And this is how people stay sober. I mean, it's a good example, I think, a really good example, because the sense of belonging is just so inherent. It's an intrinsic need we all have as human beings. We're hardwired for it. Even if somebody's introverted, they might need a lower level of stimulation, but we all need some. All of us need some, and we know what happens. When we don't get it, bad things happen when we're isolated for too long.
Yeah.
Hence, solitary confinement. That's been questionable. It should have been questionable a long time ago. But now, even some of the correctional facilities are getting rid of that because it's beyond what anybody should ever have to experience.
Yeah, extreme isolation.
It's torture, is what it is.
Yeah, and I was fortunate to be able to go to Boston and see Jay Shetty in person.
I'm
and
so
he
jealous.
said something very important. And again, we think about loneliness and alone and loneliness. Okay, so loneliness is certainly that sense of being isolated in a way, and that emotional feeling of loneliness. But he said there's also solitude. And we can put ourselves in solitude, which is more of a powerful
positive,
approach.
right.
Power, okay?
Right.
It's not like I'm alone.
Oh, no.
I'm alone. No, I'm putting myself into solitude
Intentionally.
because I need to go into a reflective state. I need to find discover some new
Right.
things about myself. So that's a proactive, powerful effort to go, I'm going into solitude.
And
As
that's
opposed to I'm alone. I am
Very different.
lonely as the
And that's the intention.
adjective, right?
Right. I mean, because I know you and I talk about this, Tom, but I am in the woods every day unless it's a typhoon situation. Even if it's drizzling, I don't care. If it's below zero, I don't care. But because I'm on a scale of extroverted, like screaming E, right? I need that solitude time every day, and it's intentional, and it's quiet, and it's nature, and I've got to have it. If too many days, I don't let it happen, but if it did, it wouldn't be good for me.
No, and I'm the same way, be it out in the woods or I have to do a meditative, spiritual prayer, devotional practice every morning. I can wake up first thing in the morning and feel, oh no, things are feeling out of control. I'm overwhelmed.
Oh, that's me too.
Overwhelmed. But as soon as I go into a meditative state and practice and accessing that spiritual piece of me, I reset. Then I feel I'm in control. Now I have a clear understanding of my next steps, and it is an incredibly empowering thing that if I were just to get up in this overwhelming state and just to go to work, I think
It'd be like dominoes, right?
I would lose that empowered
Right.
feeling, that feeling of on top and of being powerful in a positive way.
Right. And even maybe attract more chaos. I know, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm big on, after I do my gratitude thing, I do my woods thing, and I set an intention every single day. And I forget when I started that in my adulthood sometime, but wow, does that actually, I say it out loud, does that make a huge difference with how my day unfolds? Like one of my favorites is today I'm going to bring, to the best of my ability, going to bring success to everything I do. It can be a conversation, it can be changing our brand new granddaughter's diaper, making her laugh, talking with her, that's successful. Or it can be a bigger thing like a project. But every single thing, I'm going to bring my spiritual self into it and bring success to every single thing I do.
Yeah. Yeah, intention's just so important. And some of the work, we may not have time to talk about it today, but in the research, my research into synchronicity.
Yes.
Being at the right place at the right time. So I've created a meditation that I could probably share at some point in the future on how
I'd be interested in
that. Yeah, so as you talk about intention, I have a visual meditation that puts you into a state so you will recognize synchronistic opportunities.
Nice, the green lights.
Yeah. And so it's one intention, it's focus of this intention for a synchronistic event that you can manifest and bring into your life on that day.
Oh my, I can't.
We'll work on.
Maybe that's our.
doing that.
I think we already gave him a teaser, so maybe that's our.
We will do that.
Maybe that's our third one.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to that, Tom. Well, this has been fantastic, and so thank you for being here, Tom, and spending your life minutes in this way.
Great. Thank you, Kim. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Okay, now we'll just thank our Champlain College Wave Riders. So obviously you can listen here on the Champlain College radio station and also on the Mind with a D, Mindcraft YouTube channel. And that's it. Have a wonderful day.